we're going to transform GRC into something no one's ever seen. If we can do it better than we can do with a tool, build it. We were talking about potentially staying with one platform or looking at another, but he gave us the leeway of, if you guys can get this done in a few weeks, go build it. So we would build it. And it turned out better than any tool we could have bought.
Automating the risk management program was a real pain because we did it all through JIRA, and no direct hate on JIRA, but I think I probably spent a week and a half just understanding the nuances of JIRA before actually like making progress.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GRC Engineer Podcast. It's been quite some time since I had more than one guest at once, which is great. I have two amazing guests today. So I have Emre and Chad. They both work at Docker in the GRC team right now, and I'm going to present them briefly. I think you probably know them already. They're pretty well known in the GRC space, especially GRC engineering space. So to present Emre first. So Emre has been working at Docker now for a couple of months, 5-6 months, I think.
Yeah, I would say 5 months, but LinkedIn says 6 for some reason.
It's fine. A weird way of counting months on LinkedIn. So yeah, about close to 6 months. You've been at Plaid before for quite some time. Part of the kind of GRC engineering manifesto team. You have some good blog posts as well that you've shared over the years. And yeah, super exciting, building a new program. So very, very cool. And then we have Chad. So Chad, more or less, I think you started a month after Emre. Yeah, before 5 months. So working with him, you worked at MindBody before, and you worked at Twilio as well. So pretty good background, and yeah, very forward-thinking, I would say, GRC professional as well. So like between the two of you, I think this is a great pair, a great combo. So
when we get together and rub our brain cells together, we make one decent GRC engineer.
Yes, exactly.
It's nice. It's the eng and the in-ear, and you combine it, it makes an engineer. That's very cool. Anything, any extra accolades that you have that I should have mentioned and I forgot?
No, I think you hit all the points for me, Ayub. Yep, I am a Docker currently, and I was at Plaid for about 3.5 years. Prior to that, though, I was at a really big company called Broadridge for a year, just doing RFIs, which was super sad, super boring. I thought that was my life. But prior to that, I actually had a really fun experience at a cybersecurity consulting company called Remetic, and that's how I got my start.
Very cool. Chad, anything else?
No, let's go.
No. Perfect. Okay. I was like, maybe he's going to say, yeah, I fish bass on the weekend and I'm professional at that, but that's fine.
I mean, I'm a professional home golf sim player.
Hey, that's good. That's
Nice.
good. Professional home golf sim player in Indiana. That's like a combo, like probably the only one.
Yeah, I'm by far the most interesting man in Indiana.
Okay, so we get started now. So what I found fascinating is both of you kind of started in like last more or less like 6 months, and you kind of almost inherited like a greenfield kind of space. So there were some stuff before, but I really think like you kind of started. So I know a couple of people at Docker, as you know as well, and like you kind of started in a place where you kind of have to build a lot of the basics. What I wanted to kind of learn from you all is, how do you think about building that kind of program from scratch? And if like first, let's kind of have lay of the land. So how are things looking like as you just joined? Let's say first couple of weeks, just on your side with your previous experiences, like how do you think the program was looking like as you joined?
Yeah, I mean, like when I first joined, at least, like what struck me the most was how a lot of the frameworks that we were subject to were pretty much owning us instead of us owning them. A lot of the processes that I was being walked through like seemed very inefficient and something I wasn't used to, but it was also making me very happy at the same time. I was like, wow, there's so much to do. There's so much work. Like we can really scale the crap out of this. It's going to be so much fun. But pretty much like we were literally trying to force these compliance foundations onto the organization, like trying to fit a star-shaped block into a square hole or something like that, right? But it's supposed to be the other way around, right? Like instead of bending over backwards, we're supposed to make it fit the organization. Because Docker is really unique in the way it operates. And of course, we have to adjust it accordingly. So yeah, I mean, listen, you have your foundations in GRC, right? You have your risk management program, you have third-party risk, you have security training, you have compliance, or continuous compliance, trust. A lot of the elements, like it at Docker, it was there, just parts of it, right? And it was it seemed like it was built for like a really large team, even though they were operating with limited resources. Meaning, like, I think you can definitely throw like 5-6 people at that program and just have them, operate it in that fashion for sure, without making any improvements. But if you're going to operate with a smaller team, you're definitely going to need to shape up the program a bit.
Yeah, but the thing that brought me to Docker was just how much greenfield it was. There was very, I don't want to say entry level, but there were the foundations of the different programs you need within GRC. And to kind of piggyback off what Emre said, I believe one of the reasons why it was set up for a large team is because there was a pivot before Emre and I had come on a few years earlier, where Docker was this enterprise type product for a few large enterprises, where GRC, there was a very narrow window of what they needed to do. It was deep. However, when they changed over to SaaS, it became less deep, and breadth is what needed to be taken over from that point forward. And it was run by analysts. No offense to GRC analysts. I was a GRC analyst, but there weren't the people there to necessarily understand the, well, let's be honest. Docker is a by dev for dev type company where it's develop. And when you don't have engineers talking to engineers, something can kind of get lost in the translation between an analyst just throwing controls over the fence rather than an engineer. Hey, let's dive in. Let's set this up the way it needs to be. And I think once we kind of came on, engineers talking to engineers, like, people were excited. They were, let's go. We have somebody that can actually speak the same language as us, which has helped us really catapult a lot of the programs we're building right now.
Very cool. Yeah, similar. GitLab is also a company by devs for devs, so I kind of understand the same challenge. And what you said about like kind of analyst versus engineer, I think it's often like the level of abstraction you work at, right? You're very close to the framework as an analyst, whereas as an engineer, way closer to where the control is operating. So closer to how the actual developers like they implement the fix, or like the security team. So yeah, I really see it's interesting in a sense because you said that it was a fit. It also shifting the company itself. So as the company shifted, the needs of what GRC should provide also shifted. So it kind of prompted this redesign. So right now in the team, do you also have analysts, or just the two of you as like the engineers?
We have an
We
analyst.
actually have, we have one other analyst. He's pretty cracked and he's really good at what he does. So we're actually 3 engineers, myself, Chad, and another person named Ian, and Steven Oriolo. Shout out to him. He takes care of everything. And Beth, yes. Beth, so, also a huge shout out to Beth.
Yeah, Beth runs customer trust. Beth has been here for a few years, and thankfully she's able to fill us in on a lot of context as to why things were set up the way they were. That way we're not just coming in and steamrolling things. We actually understand the context of why it was built this way and how we need to re-engineer it without completely losing the business, because they are kind of set in some ways.
She was an amazing resource as coming on. It was like a textbook. Like, she had so much information about all of the products, about all the people who to talk to. Definitely set us up for success.
So it's like the tribal knowledge that you need when you get
started.
Yeah. You understand why things are the way they are.
When you have to hit the ground running, you need somebody like that.
Yeah.
And when we came to Docker, we hit the ground running fast.
So I want to kind of dig deeper on that now. So you get started, you kind of see lay of the land. Okay, so risk program, compliance, awareness. I think you also have some privacy stuff under your purview potentially. So you're thinking, when you see all this, how do you prioritize? Like, what do you think is like, okay, this is like either low-hanging fruit or like super impactful, will take some time? How do you pick like which projects you want to focus on first?
Yeah. So when I first joined, I joined like maybe like a week or two before Chad did, but I literally like maybe like caught up on a product or two about what Docker did and just went straight into a gap analysis for SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Put myself in a room, very dark room, hoodie up. Steven and I were just in a room for maybe like 4 or 5 hours a day doing a gap analysis and like really, what do you call stress testing our controls. Like asking questions, interviewing other folks, other departments, really trying to get all the information together because we needed to understand what our baseline was. Chad came along and we did the rest of like ISO 27001 with him. He can attest to the very long days we had in that spreadsheet. Just like trying to figure out
27,001.
Yes, Chad's onboarding was literally ISO 27001. It was quite the ride. And then once we put that together, I would say like from that point, it's really just setting up big rocks, trying to work with teams, and communicate to them pretty much where our controls stand and how we need to improve them. So it was a really big organization effort, and the amount of support we got from other teams was phenomenal. I mean, everybody was all hands on deck. Everybody was trying to help put the pieces back together, and that's where we started. And we split up projects for both GRC, security, eng, IT, HR, and that's really how we prioritize it. We'd also get in a room all together and just say okay, let's stack rank these. What is the most important? We'd all discuss. We'd all provide our input onto it. And I'd say we did that all the way from 0 to 1 for the GRC program. We communicated with each other and we came up with what to prioritize.
Yeah, one's where we hit the speed bump, because then came in the fact that our business is ever moving forward at light speed pace. So after we made kind of our stack rank of what we felt was most necessary, we then had to work against what the business needed prioritized, because with different products comes different customers. With different customers comes different requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So while we had what we wanted to do stack ranked, privacy wasn't necessarily at the top of the list. But now we have a lot more customers that, hey, we need to see privacy certifications. How's your guys' privacy setup? What do you have today? So we then took what we wanted to work on, what we knew we needed to create a solid baseline to be able to start building in some of the efficiencies and automations. And then it's, okay, now we're going to set this giant pot of privacy on top of it as well. We need you guys to be able to weave this into the roadmap that you currently have. But thankfully, we've been lucky in that we've had a lot of support from the business, and our manager at Current has a ridiculous amount of trust in us to move forward and do the right things. So we haven't had too much intervention in stopping us from going forward and doing the work we know that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's also a great call out, Chad. Our manager really let us just do our thing, combine our experiences that we've had at past organizations and just fly. Just go do what you think is important. And it's worked out really well so far. To the point where every single project, we're all involved, we're all planning it together from start to finish pretty much. And I think that's what's really excelled, right? And mind you, we don't have a GRC manager. We're pretty much self-managing ourselves in a way.
So your manager is not a GRC manager?
Yes, our manager is not a GRC manager, but they have so much knowledge in corporate structure, relationships, project planning, right? Prioritization, ruthless prioritization. He's amazing at that.
And a wildly deep understanding of engineering.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And actually for, I think a while, he had actually debated whether or not we needed a manager, and came to the conclusion, it's you guys are just doing a great job without one. Just keep going.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, good management, especially when you're given a lot of agency, I think that's really the key differentiator, because you've been hired because you know your stuff. Then if you don't have the agency to implement stuff, then you end up having your skills wasted in a sense. And you said about it's kind of square in the circle, right? If you have kind of tough constraints which do not make sense in what you're trying to build, but you still have to live within them, that's where they can stifle your impact. So what's also fascinating about what you said is I see a lot of cross team collaboration, a lot of reaching out to control owners, to other teams, security, engineering, people that have been at the company for a long time. Because what stuff is, when you hit the ground running, sometimes, sometimes even when you interview, you kind of say, if I was in that role, this would have been my roadmap. And then you get started and you see kind of stuff under the cover that no one saw before. And you're like, okay, I need to revise my plan. And what you said about privacy, right? You had your plan, and then there's shift potentially the product, new types of customers. And then okay, we have this plan, we stack ranked everything, but then we have to add this other layer, and we have to also ensure it's for the business, it's for customers. So we need to ensure all that is also baked in. Yeah, but it's very interesting, very interesting. So I like that because it's very collaborative, because sometimes in the GRC bubble, we can find what we think is the most important. But if we don't stress test that with the control owners and the rest of the business, then it's when you actually speak to them, it's completely different ranking, completely different way of approaching what's important. So that's pretty cool. In terms of, so you kind of said like, so to ISO, like it was the kind of baseline, you were deep in there making sure like you did a very, very thorough gap analysis. Do you kind of see it where like compliance and I would say privacy can also is related in a sense to compliance? Like, would you see it's like kind of that baseline that you had to make sure was perfect? And then like we're thinking risk and other areas would be kind of nicer to have once the baseline is strong. How do you think about kind of that progression?
I'll let Chad take this one.
No, what
Can
did
you
I just
expand a
ask?
little bit more on that question?
Okay, so what I'm saying is like often when inherit program, like you did the right way, like you focus on compliance and like what's the current stage because you need to uphold these for kind of contracts and external obligations. But then once you have that kind of in a good state, like the next step, let's say you want to kind of improve the risk program, or maybe it's awareness, like whatever, right? How do you kind of say, okay, we have the baseline good, like how do you say like this is the next step in terms of maturing the program? Like is it risk, is it like I know awareness, you've done some work on that, like how do you think, or question automation, whatever?
Yeah, for us, at least starting out, is let's get everything operational. Once we have everything operational, we can then go back and see, okay, but it's clearing the low hanging fruit. The low hanging fruit, or in some cases, the fruit that's a little less low hanging, but it's going to bring a lot more value with the effort. So I think after we go ahead and we get the programs in place that are going to provide the most value to the business, then we're going to go back. We're going to do an assessment of, okay, which of these pieces do we need to build out to further our program? With the current state that we're in right now, I think we've done a fantastic job of where we haven't put ourselves in buckets. So, like, Emery has worked on a lot of the risk. He and I have done a little bit of paired programming on it, but it's not something where he's getting tunnel vision of, okay, risk is set up, but I want to keep maturing this out because this is me and I want people to know. We've done a great job of getting things to the point of where, okay, this is functional. Now we need to take in a little bit of user feedback of what they want. One of the things that's been drilled into me, my wonderful, wonderful wife, she works in the UX profession, and it has either for better or worse rubbed off on me. So everything I do, I think of user experience during the process. So there are things that we need to do for compliance. There are things that we need to do just to better the business. But at the same time, if we focus a little more on user experience as we're building these out, we're going to get it in a place where it's more used. So as we build out our different processes and people start using them, that is where we're going to really start to get the feedback of how these things need to move forward. So it's not necessarily, okay, engineering, let's automate this. It's how best do people want to interact with what we're building? Because if we build the most cool thing on the planet, but nobody uses it, it doesn't matter. So a lot of it is getting it to a point to where we're starting to get that user feedback in and allowing the business to kind of guide how we move forward with it.
And to add on top of that, like I am like a firm believer in like automating all the operational busybody work, so that leaves more room for strategic and scaling the programs, right? Because when we came in, there was a lot of operational like burden, and there were a lot of things like that were coming out from like the left field that we knew from past experience was going to be a lot of operational work. So those are the things we really try to cut down on first, while also helping out with compliance efforts. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that makes sense. I think, you're thinking about what you're building as a product. So you said UX, it's like if the end users are not consuming it, or like the NPS score is low, like no one would use your stuff, then, you kind of not having the impact you want, because if it's perfect in your bubble, it doesn't matter if the consumers are not using it or, have a lot of negative feedback.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the headspace of building something out for myself if I'm
Yeah.
not the end user. And one of the kind of going off that, one of the never mind, go ahead. It was here and then it just went that way. So yeah.
Oh, that's all right. No, that was a good point. And what you said about like kind of that operational work that you needed quickly to kind of automate so you could focus on strategic work. On that, I wanted to kind of understand, you're both GRC engineers, how the engineer part has come in like you hitting the ground running and kind of getting those first operational wins. How did it play out in practice?
Yeah, I think our very first operational win was probably training, where like I'm gonna say this one, yes, we had gaps where people weren't completing training, right? It fell through the cracks because,
We didn't have gaps, we had inefficiencies.
We had inefficiencies, right? That's the word we wanted to use, right? People weren't completing training on time. And I think this was like a result of like management change, like changing very quickly in GRC, and it just like fell through the cracks. But the reason it fell through the cracks is because the process was very manual.
Yes.
And the LMS tool we had, and we still have currently, doesn't do it doesn't do notifications to folks to like complete training at all. It will notify them once it's expired or once the due date's up. I'm like, what the heck is the point in that? Like, we want to, let them know beforehand. So I think one of the the quickest operational win was to create our own Slack bot that will reach out to users with escalation patterns, using the API of the LMS to determine if people were out of training or if it's coming close to the deadline. Of course, there were escalation patterns like 10 days away. We'd CC in the manager. 5 days away, we would directly message the manager. And honestly, so far, it's been great. Like, we have not had a single person miss training.
Proper
Wow.
tracking and
Very cool.
metrics
Yep.
with it as well.
Proper tracking metrics. Yep, exactly. And we also like revamped the training completely, Chad and I, using Claude, Anthropic's, right?
6-member of our
model.
team.
Yeah, the 6-member of our team. I forgot to mention them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely came in clutch.
I like
But
it.
created experience like very, very straightforward for users, gamified it, made it really fun. And, I've never seen this much engagement for a training before. And it's done wonders.
I've had a demo, and I would say, I've never seen a better training.
That's
Thank you.
part of us like productizing GRC as well. That, along with some of the other work when revamping the risk program, setting everything up, we realized that just-in-time permissioning would be best for us to utilize our license for a JIRA service management project. So doing that shift as well, being able to shift our subscription along with the money we saved on not having to bring on a training platform, our team is actually saving money rather than just spending. And we have other teams that are interested in the training we're providing people, being able to set that up for them to provide training as well. So we'll be able to essentially sell our product throughout the business. So we're actually going to be a revenue generating team.
Wow.
Exactly. Speaking on the risk management program, like we all of course we thought about users when doing this. Like, we want it to be self-servable. We want like this to manage on its own with very few checkpoints that GRC just jumps in and helps, massages and moves it along. We don't want people spending time like more than like say an hour or 2 hours assessing a risk, more than a week trying to come to a decision. Then and there, right? What works for the business, move fast with the business. So it's set up accordingly to do just that. Even with like, we had efficiency gains with TPRM, right? Third party risk management. Steven Ario, he did a great job trying to, cut down that process and remove, some inefficiencies there.
Changing up some of the questions on the initial intake so we're able to skip part of the process if they don't necessarily fall into it. Allow them to plinko down in the most efficient way they can.
Yep. Took a very like tier focused approach around like what should be reviewed, what shouldn't be reviewed, right? Things like that. Questions to ask, questions we shouldn't ask, right? Who do we bother? Who do we don't bother? Those are very quick wins that you can make in any GRC team for any GRC program. And then you got continuous compliance, which has been really fun. Super fun.
Very cool. So like, I know. You highlighted quite a few of those wins. In terms of like, in your context, like you both operating as kind of engineers, how do you think about build versus buy? Like, when you face a new problem, like,
devs company, man,
so many,
buy devs for devs, build it, don't buy it. So
it's the bias.
That is one of the wonderful things about our leadership is if we can do it better than we can do with a tool, build it. And that is exactly where we had the empowerment to redo our own security training ourselves. Going to our leader, because we were talking about potentially staying with one platform or looking at another. But he gave us the leeway of, if you guys can get this done in a few weeks, just go build it. So we went build it. And it turned out better than any tool we could have bought. And
in less than 3 days.
Yeah. And
wow, less than 3 days. Oh my gosh.
He empowered me to create an automated questionnaire. We get a customer questionnaire, we pump it into the tool, it queries our knowledge base, pre-fills it out, gives a confidence score on answers. So if someone needs to go back and actually look at some of it, fill it back in, can do that. Gave me enough lateral movement to go ahead and make it look like an 8-bit Zelda game. Like whatever is going to better our jobs, like just go forth and do it, guys. So
and especially like with the tools we have today too, like I firmly believe there's no excuse in like why anybody can't build things themselves, right?
If you have a very manual process or you just have something that sucks to do, there's no reason that someone can't just go out and fix that process themselves.
And hey, worst case scenario, you learn something.
And I
Yeah,
just
no,
put it
100%.
out there that there's no excuse, so now I have to live by that.
Yeah. Emre will take you up on that if you try to buy
Yeah,
something.
call me out instantly when I say,
Yeah,
I don't want
it's
to do
like,
that.
you want to buy that Starbucks latte? Can you build it? Can you build a Starbucks latte?
No, I will still get my Starbucks lattes. I'm sorry, cold brews actually.
So yeah, so you have kind of that build bias. Do you see any potential drawbacks in terms of like maintenance or scale, or do you think that with those tools, like I'm thinking Claude Code, which I've been using quite a lot as well, like you think because often you think like as a user of these tools, if you don't know what you're talking about, you often can end up in that like
Yeah.
infinite debug loop and stuff like this. But the last 5% you spend 90%
Yeah.
of the time. Do you think with that little bit of extra scale you have, like it makes it so much more powerful in terms of getting like production ready solutions?
Yeah. And I think it really depends on the tool too, right? Like if you're messing around with like AI models and you're doing like agentic workflows, yes, that's a lot of maintenance because there's new agents that or new models that come out every single day. It slips up in one place, you try to train it, it ruins like the rest of the freaking agent, right? Like I think with those, yes, there's a lot of maintenance, but I think if it's like ones and zeros and it's logic formed engineering, I don't think there's much maintenance behind that. Maybe like once a month.
I think one of
Check
the
in,
things
see if
we
it still
have,
works.
go ahead.
Go for it. No, I'm
One of
done.
the things we have working out for us is a lot of what we're doing is helping making other people's jobs easier. Being that we're a company of nothing but engineers, if we have issues, someone on a team knowing that, hey, this product that these guys are trying to put together is going to make my job easier. We have essentially an infinite amount of help ensuring that the maintenance on this is going to happen right. I think as well as we do start building out more of our tools, we start saving more money. It could be another engineer. Like we're helping scale ourselves in a way that we might get to a point where we're just doing maintenance. We're
Yeah.
not necessarily having to develop new things. We're just ensuring that the tools we're putting in place work, where when we do have to put eyes on it very minimally, there's much less to put eyes on.
Yep.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, it's interesting because then like I would say like historically setup of teams would be kind of a head of GRC, and then you have like a team of analysts, maybe a program manager, and then often you have to rent engineering resources from like a pool or from like someone that we might have, or even hire external consultants or implementation consultants. And I think now the setup, I think Docker and your team is kind of a laboratory for that because it's like really this kind of engineer being the majority of the team, and then the kind of potentially higher value, higher leverage activities they might be performed by someone that has more of the analyst skill set, but they need to be a lot stronger as an SME because the skill set changes. The basics have been dealt with. So, it's more about alignment with other teams and like kind of pushing above like the baseline and going further and being even more integrated. But for that, you need to free up the time, but you also need like a better technical context.
I think one of the biggest benefits to our teams is that no one on our team brings an ego to the plate. So like, yeah, typically there's that head of GRC, there's a program manager, there's analysts, there's engineers. I've done program management on a very large scale before. So that was one of the very first things when I came in, like the gap analysis was going, we were finding those buckets of where we needed to slot work. So the first thing that popped up in my mind was like, yeah, dude, let's get this into programs. Let's set up a framework for us to go forward and do this work, set up proper comms channels, set up proper tracking. We have that. I don't necessarily see I have to stay in this engineer lane. When we need analyst work, I've been an analyst before. I'm sure Emery's had analyst experience. We don't feel anything's beneath us. We don't feel that there's not something where we can lean on someone else on the team for the experience that they bring forward for it. So we may not have these additional roles, but we have these additional roles. I've done leadership before as well. No one on the team is going to be like, "Oh no, don't take the mic. Don't try to tell us what to do." If somebody has the experience, like get up there, man. We're willing to follow you forward.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I really like about the team. It's like we're very transparent with each other. We like just mesh really well. And I think a part of that is because we all came from a very similar background, right? I think most people in GRC do too. It's where like you do a lot of like the grunt work, right? And I think that really builds character. And like no matter what position you are later in life, you're just like, yeah, I'll go like help you out with that. I'll go do it. Right. No, even if you're an engineer at that point, it's like it doesn't matter. It's wherever the team needs support.
Yeah, I really like that, what you just said. Like there's a book I like. I think it's called The Staff Engineer by Tanya O'Reilly. And she talked about glue. And I think GRC is often that glue between teams. What you say about the groundwork is very true. I don't know. It builds character, maybe some resentment, depending as well.
And you're going to give me PTSD of when I first started out in security. Oh, you got to go work a help desk in IT for 3 years before you can
Yes.
even consider this.
Yeah, you need to get yelled at 100,000 customers, and then you can break into security. That's the pathway. What you said about so you're engineers, but what I like is like Chad, you said you don't leadership, you don't like kind of more TPM work, like kind of like it brings like, because often if you're like a pure engineer, there's this thing where you might have more of like a tunnel vision, just
Yeah.
because often you focus on a very micro scale. And what's weird about GRC is like a GRC engineer combines GRC, which is like the greater span of responsibilities outside the CISO in security. With engineer, there's often more micro, and at like big tech companies, an engineer might just work on 2 buttons, right? So it's like that combination of working at scale and really impacting like almost every team, while also developing like solutions which are like kind of combined into small units of code, right? It's like really that, in a sense, is a bit of a like oxymoron, it's like the contrary.
Yeah. And wait, I guess that's a question back to you. Why do you think that is? Like, do you think like is GRC maybe trying to like prove its worth?
Yeah, I think there's two philosophies in JARC engineering. I think there's a philosophy of like we need to bother people less, and if we can automate everything, potentially we'll have to speak to them less because, hey, engineer, it's horrible because I have to ask you for a screenshot every 3 months. Like if I just hit those two APIs, I can get what I want, and then I won't bother you again. And I think this is like short term, because I think we should bother them for good reasons, like for actual stuff that is good. So we should speak to them. And the goal is not to, because if you do that, it's just audit driven. And I want GRC to be above and beyond audit. So for me, I think it's weird when you just focus on like reducing toil on stakeholders, because it works up to a point. But then if you just maintain that, I think you're just a productivity team versus like, kind of a bottom line impacting team.
Yeah.
What
For
do you
me, GRC engineering is enablement. I want the interactions that I have with engineering to be less, but more valuable to them. That way, anytime I do go for them of, hey, I need some evidence for an audit, they don't care. Like
mm,
one of the big issues, it's not an issue, but a pain point is UARs. Figuring out a better way to do UARs, it used to be pulling teeth with folks. I mean, I came in, one of the first interactions I had with a lot of different engineering managers, like, hey, let's go to a UAR. But spending the time in between the one from Q2 to Q3, finding ways that I can make it much more efficient. And between that time, I've had very good conversations with some of these guys on helping them in various other areas. So much easier.
Yeah.
And I'm minimizing my conversations, but every time I talk to these guys, they're getting value out of it as well as us. So we're building these relationships, and they don't see GRC as someone that's, oh, they're just going to come to me for evidence, or, oh, they're going to tell me I'm doing something wrong. It's okay. Here comes a partner that is looking to make something better in my life. And that is just, it's made things so much easier.
Go ahead, Emre. I think you wanted to say something.
yeah. No, I know this is your podcast, but I like really wanted to ask this question. It's like, what do you think like compliance would be, or what would GRC be without the audit mafia? Like without the certificates, right? Like what would we be? And somebody asked me this question the other day too, and it took me like a while to like think through like what we would do. I know my answer, but I wanted to know like what you think it'd be.
That's a very good question. I would say like, I think it's, I think the GRC automation platform, they changed a little bit how we think about GRC, because with trust and trust centers and like the SOC 2 being like an enabler for startups, I think they bring especially compliance closer to the bottom line. So it's almost a sales enablement function. compliance, and you have to uphold it because of all those deals and the contractual agreements. And I would say in that sense, like I even know like CISOs often they don't like GRC too much, but for budget, like if you can put some compliance enabling new markets and all that, you get what you want for the other teams. So I think we need them, but I think it's the I think the percentage driven by just audit and compliance will decrease if it's just based on like certifications. If it's not like your own internal baseline that you actually build with the engineering org and the rest, and you might have like 40% of those controls which are in none of the external requirements. Because for me, really, it's like the other teams, like finance, legal. Like at some point, compliance will become more and more table stakes, and that's where we need to think. Like, what I want is like we go to like an engineering team, and they gave us data. We give back that data, but it's enriched with insights they didn't have. And if they want to learn, hey, I need to prioritize one thing on the security side. I have like 5% non-functional requirements for this quarter. Like I need to prioritize. They have all the data from our team, which is enriched and useful on their side. And then they make an informed decision, which can be like business impacting. That's
Risk-based decision.
It's risk-based, exactly. So that's what we end up becoming, right?
Yep.
Very
Graduating from
risk-focused.
compliance to risk.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way I think about it. I think risk will become more central, but I think we'll need both. I think there's many like philosophies. Like for some people, risk management is a control. So the risk management itself is like compliance. Like there's very different approaches. But I would say, like, if we make compliance more than the baseline, then it still has its place. But like evidence collection is commoditized. It's so easy now to kind of embed like binary logic to test a lot of controls, especially where you have API access. So like a lot of the auditor specific role will shrink. They probably at some point will just validate outputs that were already made. So tests will already happen. Completeness and accuracy checks were already been done. So then in that sense, risk is where you actually only care about business outcomes and impact the bottom line of the company. So that's where you can be more strategic.
Central. That's why it's in between the G and the C.
My gosh, this is next level. This is like
now we're getting philosophical.
I love that. I have a lot more questions. I want to ask like so we spoke about like a lot of the build versus buy, how you approach that kind of will be more build based. Like when you build a solution for your customers, how do you kind of measure the impact in terms of like adoption? So do they like, maybe they don't like it. Like how do you track like feature requests or like feedback you get? How do you kind of manage the ongoing relationship on something you've built?
It is very hard for us to manage all the praise that's constantly showered on us. I thank you for asking that
it's
question.
so hard.
I love it.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, go for it, Chad.
I say a lot of what we build, we do so thinking about the metrics we want to have in mind as well. It's like building out the awareness training that came with feedback already built in. But being that you're at a company of engineers aren't quiet if they don't like something. They're going to tell you if something's wrong.
Oh, yes.
So understanding our audience is going to automatically give us feedback regardless. We also, Emre does a great job. I'm definitely calling out Emre on this one. When we're going through and building something, we get feedback early and often from like the security team. We have security show and tell meetings every Friday. I do want to say that the GRC, I think we're swinging a little heavier than security when it goes to showing things. I hope they watch this podcast. But Emre does a great job during those meetings of showing off what we're doing. That way we can get that feedback right then from one set of our audience. But it's like we put it out there. We expect feedback as we're doing things to ensure that when something does go live, hey man, the users are already excited about it. But yeah, we have I've seen a lot of great praise come in and on like our general channels and the praise tool that we have built into Slack and whatnot on products that have been built by our team. We've got a good eye about what our users actually expect and want.
We also, like, as part of that, even like once the product's built out, like we'll add like CSATs, like customer satisfaction surveys, right? And so far it's been like nothing but, good comments or like great feedback, like not really like any improvements around feedback, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like a channel or a source for people to post or add comments anonymously.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I think the important thing is to capture it, right? If it's only positive, it just means you guys are awesome, right? That's it. But, I think at least if you capture it, it's good on both sides, because sometimes when you build something cool and you don't have any kind of tangible feedback from users, like,
Yes.
when you kind of report leadership on like, what's the adoption like? And, what's the feedback like? We don't know. I think it's fine. But when you have like 100 hearts and like people sending you love letters and stuff, like, it's just something can showcase to leadership.
It is, but at the same time, it does make me a little wary. There has to be bad feedback out there. That's the feedback we want.
Yeah.
We can't improve on nothing but good feedback. And I don't know if it's sometimes people don't want to hurt your feelings, but man, it would be great to have somebody just shred it once, because
When
we
you have that,
don't have a user base. We're not accounting for a user base out there somewhere.
yeah, I think if the net new difference is huge, like the first year, everyone will have like amazing praises, and then the next year, you'll have maybe some like more critical feedback
Yeah.
because you have 1 year running.
That'd be fantastic.
Right now
Yeah.
they're like, these guys, they're crushing it. They're amazing. And
They're
next year,
going to
like,
look in Slack, see how long we've been there. It's like, okay, we can hurt these guys' feelings. Now they've been here long enough.
like you can't automate like finding my taxes and stuff. Like, this was not as good as I thought. Very cool. A question I had related to this is, you probably like thought of all the areas you thought automation could be an enabler in winning time over. Which areas were you thought of the POC or like kind of the design phase, and you were like, automate this, like it will be a lot of work, and probably like the opportunity cost of like focusing on that area right now is a bit high. How do you think about this, and did it happen yet?
Yes, it has. I think we're done with it, but the automating the risk management program was a real pain because we did it all through JIRA, and no direct hate on JIRA, but it was really tough developing with their tools to create an automated workflow. There were lots of like, I think I probably spent a week and a half just understanding the nuances of JIRA before actually like making progress on automating the risk program. And like at one point, like Chad and I were like, what if we just freaking built our own like solution, right? Like outside of JIRA, like an internal site around risk. And I thought it was a great idea, but I was like, dude, it's like, what is it? I already spent so much time on it. The sunk cost fallacy started kicking in, and I was like,
but that
what
is
do I do?
Another place where there's improvements that can be made, but we have a solid enough baseline that we're moving on to other things.
Yeah. And I do think, right, the troubles and tribulations we went through with Atlassian, it actually, I think, bred innovation, right? Like smart ways to do things, right? Hacky ways. And I think that's what I think makes a GRC engineer. It's like, there is no blockade, right? You just make another road. And yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because did you pick JIRA because that's where a lot of your user base was that were going to potentially like complete those risk assessments, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, it's a ticket management solution. They have a solution, JIRA Service Management, where you can actually go ahead and manage tickets, resolve tickets. Great like workflow feature. It's just the back end type things that are tricky to deal with.
Yeah.
And also some of the user experience requires a bit of teaching, right? And how to use it. I don't think
It's just so easy for anyone to pick up and use flawlessly.
I don't know if that was sarcastic.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also very easy to break things in JIRA too. So it's like making sure like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be a company where like we are going to be using JIRA as a project management tool, I think that's where like kind of risk should exist, right? You know, filling out assessments, tracking what the treatment decisions are, right? Audit logs, audit history, things like that.
Going where our users are.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Yeah, when I was working at a startup, I built kind of a risk assessment workflow inside where the PMs were doing like the planning in JIRA, and then automatically, if it was above threshold, it would trigger like a risk assessment and stuff. And it makes sense because at the end of the day, like if like it's the context switch tax.
Exactly.
So if they have to move to a different tool just for your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
especially in fast moving companies, they just won't do it.
Yeah.
So if you make it so seamless, I'm like then it's like almost on them. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you can actually say, hey, like we should have process adherence with how easy it is. So I
Mhm.
think if we didn't make the effort, then it's tougher for us to have a case to say like you should actually adhere to the process. But like if you make it so sticky that like by just following their day-to-day work, like they embed those activities in, like you get like you actually like remove a lot of those kind of shadow process going on and like kind of avoiding the whole stuff altogether.
Yeah.
But it's more work on your end to kind of figure that out. That's what stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the beauty of it, right? It's like you create
Yeah.
a process that was
What you
never
said
there
about like
before.
kind of, you know, hacky ways is very accurate, right? Because like, of course, like there's easy kind of, you know, we could say like low hanging fruits like AWS and stuff like everyone knows
Mhm.
about now. Like you can hit AWS config and stuff like this. But I'm like, hey, I work in SharePoint. I use SailPoint for IAM. I use XYZ thing.
Yeah.
And then in your context, you're like, you need to read the docs and the combine stuff there. Like this API, why is this in XML? Like I hate this. And like in this whole like kind of weird ways in which companies were built because of maybe the founder's background, the first CTO, like, you know, I don't know, someone liked Oracle, so now we stuck with it or whatever. And because of that, like then as a GRC engineer, you kind of have to have that core skill set to know where to look for to get the
Mhm.
info you need to build that technical solution. Yeah. So
And
it's,
it's great these days where one company acquires another company every 18 months, and now you're inheriting all the processes and the tooling from the other company, trying to find that common denominator of how am I going to get the most users to actually use this without building multiple solutions.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. I feel like GRC engineering, like I was like at some point we become GRC architect, like it would be a lot more orchestration because like if you're thinking about what's happening at the bottom is like all those new AI tools that coming in every single
Mhm.
vertical. And like we're using like huge tools as like systems of record. And then often the brains on top of those tools are very small startups that kind of just getting started and they're super good, but like very small. And then they integrate with the system of record, but then they might have input on data for the GRC team. So that's where, you know, you kind of become almost a SaaS security team.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. In terms of like the common denominator between all of those like kind of activities or things you've built, if you kind of have to can pinpoint a couple of technical skills that you think work in all cases and have been like instrumental for your role,
Yeah.
what would they be?
Probably APIs, right? Really understanding how to work with APIs, because as of course, like GRC engineers, right? You're whether it's continuous compliance or it's building out a risk program or it's security training, you are going to come across an API you need to make a call for, pull, manipulate the data, right? I think that's a really core skill, and I think that's a very core skill for any engineering role. So definitely know how to read API docs. Definitely know how to make the
Yeah.
calls to them. Definitely know how to create a API key, right? Authentication. But use Postman, yep. Testing, right? Making sure it works. It's still there. It exists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Parameters, all this.
yeah,
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 100%. What
yeah.
about you, Chad?
Curl, yeah.
So there's three things that really kind of stick in my mind. Being able to create proper documentation, because so many times, especially as like Emery works on risk, I do a lot of the continued compliance right now. One of us were to leave, okay, there goes everything without that proper documentation to be able to pick it
What's
up
the
and just
phrase we
move
use?
forward.
Win the lottery.
Yes, well, I don't play. So when my father wins a lottery and sends me a text of, hey, go be a bum on a beach, I'm gone. No offense to you. I love you working with you, Emery, but I'm gone. Curiosity is another, it's not necessarily technical, but actually wanting to dive in and fix something. I think so many times people think, oh, I could probably do this, but that's wasted effort knowing that I need to do this, which kind of ties in with my last ones, being willing to fail. Like the things that if Emery decided to quit doing what he was doing the first time he failed for the RIT, well, that wouldn't have went anywhere. The application that I'm building for questionnaires, if the times I failed on that is wild, so
Yeah.
wild. Like just going in
I
the
think
same loop of, okay, this will fix this, but then it breaks that.
I
Being
think there
able
are
to
many
fail,
times where we're like, we just want to like quit, right? You come across
Yeah.
like a blockhead, but you're like, no, I can't. Like I'm so close.
then we hop on a meeting with each other and one of
Yeah.
us gives the other one the most obvious answer in the world. And it's like, oh, yeah, Move forward. I mean, curiosity, being willing to fail, and documentation for me. Like if you can't do those three things, or you don't want to do those three things, nobody wants to really do documentation. You're not really
Mhm.
helping your teammates. You're not really helping your company.
Right. I think like it definitely goes like, I think project planning, right? It goes back to that, right? Being really good at writing up the project plan for your implementation, and getting feedback all around before starting is really important. I know it's crazy to think of it like why an engineer has to write docs, but I think good. What do they say? Or no, what do I say? I guess everybody says this. Good project management is good execution or whatever. Like good project planning, good execution. Right.
Yeah, it makes sense. Especially nowadays, you're thinking like, if you work through LLMs a lot, like good documentation is also great for LLMs to leverage. And the
Yes.
better it is written, the less likely you get like, random bugs or like stuff that is completely out
Mhm.
of like how you define and implement all the steps. And I think that's really like documentation has become more and more important as we speak through text with LLMs. And that's how we get like higher
Right.
accuracy, less hallucinations and stuff. So,
Something else I find important is not necessarily being able to write multiple coding languages, but being able to understand them when you look at them.
Mhm.
And it's that understanding piece. One of the somebody's looking at getting into GRC engineering. One of the tips that I would give them is if you're going to use something like Claude Code to develop something you want to do, when you're writing in those prompts, make sure you write in there to put in documentation as you're doing it. That way you can look through it and actually understand what you're doing. Because I think we're getting into an era where there's going to be lots of things that are doing stuff great, but people are going to have no idea how they did it, why they did it,
Yep.
and realize
Yeah.
that this is actually very inefficient or this is very insecure. You have hard coded credentials in here. So being able to actually understand what you're looking at in a lot of cases, I think we're really missing that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important to review definitely like every single piece of code that Claude is like making for you. Like I definitely read through and make sure the logic is sound. And I think like 6 times out of 10, I have to go correct it.
Yes.
I have to be like, no, you have to do this. No, this logic isn't going to work because it's going to break here, right? Right. Add debugging solutions, right, to figure out the core problem. And honestly, like I've gotten so used to Claude Code where, like, how do I say? I graduated in computer science, right? I've been scripting and coding before AI, but AI has just made it so much easier, and I rely on it a lot more to the point where, like, if you ask me to go ahead and build a function from scratch, like, I don't know, maybe to some, I'd be like, oh my God, what the heck is a function? Right? Like, what was the syntax? So that's a bit scary. And so definitely like practicing once in a while will help you keep you on your toes. But definitely that ability to read through code and read through flawed logic never disappears.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what's challenging for the new generation is like even me, I use quite a bit. And like I actually have in like my kind of user level CodeMD file, like my kind of current proficiency level. And I'm like, when you make those changes, like this is my level in Python, like ensure that you give me additional context on what it means and like how this
Hmm.
and I always ask it to build a small diagram when it makes a change, because often it creates like redundant methods. And then
Yes.
you want to add a new, like you want to add a net new function or like a different Py file that links to another one. And instead
Hmm.
of leveraging the existing one for all the methods and how it calls like the kind of
It just creates a net new
the
one
tree,
inside the
it
scope.
creates net
Yeah.
new ones, net new
Yeah.
extractors for TPRM, for example. And I'm like, dumb, like the other one is already using this.
Yes.
And then when I say that, like, oh yes, and I'm like, so
Sometimes it
this,
forgets when your context window, I guess, like just like disappears and it creates a new
yeah,
session. It
when
like
it
just
compacts
assumes it
it,
knows nothing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
when
it'll
it
have
compacts the windows
dependencies,
sometimes,
the same dependency, but different versions of it. And
yeah, and it
But
yeah,
you
adds
know
like,
that. That's why you're there, Ayub.
exactly.
Yeah.
and so it's like it's interesting because I think having a little bit of pre AI coding experience makes you 10 times better at leveraging it. Because
100%.
if you don't know, even if there's the output, you don't know what to do with it. And it's very verbose, like the kind of
Yeah.
amount of code lines it produces. Like if you have to review 60 lines of Python code and you
Hmm.
have no idea, you're like, it seems fine. I think it works.
Yeah.
Who will watch the watchers? That's
Yeah,
what we are.
yeah, yeah. But I would say, yeah, you can tweak your Claude MD files to be more verbose around these things to make sure it's fit for your own kind of current stage. There's a good video online. It's the the head of design at Claude Code, and she shared her own Claude MD file, and she's not technical. And she explained how she asks stuff to Claude Code to make sure it fits her stuff. So specific emojis and like specific methods, like she wants like for every function, like a detailed understanding in like kind of UX language, and it
Good.
makes her way better. So there's like ways you can do it.
She's training herself as she's doing it. And that's the best
Exactly.
way to go at it.
Yeah.
I learned Go, knowing that Go was the main language at Docker. I learned Go by writing things that I've already done in Python, but having Claude Code essentially
Very cool.
translated into Go with very deep descriptions. And it's like, okay, I can see how this translates over to Python. This makes sense. Yeah, this is great. And that, I mean, I used it to redo all of my old work that I've done that I have a good understanding of in Go. That way, then, okay, I better understand this because I know exactly how this works.
Yeah, it's a translation exercise. Yep.
Yeah. And I think like you can know like at the very least that, you know, any of these coding tools like Claude Code or Cursor, you're not going to get hung up on the syntax, right? Right. And that's like reassuring to know that like you don't have to worry about that and you can focus more on like the features and the logic behind it. And something that I've seen like that you really need to be on top of is like, right, API documentation, right? Because it doesn't have knowledge of every single API. So you have to like go read through it, go provide it some examples, give it a proper example on how to use a certain API, and then it does the job. But yeah, that's part of it.
And often when you just ask it to hit a random API, it would use like outdated docs on which it was trained on.
Yeah. Or it's going to create a random API.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
reference the completely wrong site.
Yeah, exactly. But and another top tip I would say, if you probably already use that, but using voice to text, I think is also very good because I think the more context, the less likely you have a bad output. And sometimes when I do the plan mode on Claude Code, I would speak my mind, and then I add the little
I haven't
ultra
tried
think
that.
at the end, ultra think in all caps, because you have those stages. So it's like think harder, think hardest, and ultra think. And when it gets into ultra think mode, like it would run through like 60K lines of code and like you can use sub agents to go through specific subdirectories, and so
That's
there's a lot of interesting power users.
I haven't played around with like sub agents or multi-agent coding yet. I don't think the program's at that level of like I need that much efficiency just yet.
We'll do some stuff.
I definitely want to crack into it.
Take a peek in my mind. Let me do a random just
reach my limit within like 10 minutes.
Like this is what a human thinks. We're out of here.
That was very interesting. But yeah, like I think we spoke about some guardrails, some top tips for people to use them to build stuff. In terms of, let's say we meet in 12 months and you've been here a couple of months, you already had like huge impact. What do you want me to ask you in 12 months in terms of like what you've achieved, like the successes, like what's the vision for the next 12 months at the pace at which you're going?
Yeah, I think we should give you kind of like what we're going to do in the next 12 months. And you're going to be one of the methods that actually holds us accountable for doing it.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's that list?
We're going to transform GRC into something no one's ever seen.
I loved it.
No, and within like the next 3 months. So we have our SOC 2 and our ISO 27001 coming up in the spring. So the next 3 months is going to be ensuring that when we came on, we had a GRC tool, nothing was done with it. So in the next 3 months, we want to get our GRC tool into a point to where all the current controls we have in there, we have tuned continuous compliance on all of our controls to know that what we deliver auditors is at least our vision of how we see providing the evidence and what we want those controls to actually monitor. Having that tuned within the next 3 months, that way when we go into our audit, hey, they can pull from our tool rather than, hey, let's get on a call with 50 different people and have them show us evidence.
Exactly.
That's one of the areas where we want to cut down on engineering and we want to cut down on everyone of like, we don't want our thing to be their problem.
Yeah.
So getting that tuned. Emre, what's your thoughts kind of on 6 months out?
Yeah, 6 months out. So let me roll back and give some context around the continuous compliance. So before we started, like, working with that tool, we did like a complete gap analysis with it, right? What can the tool cover? What can it not cover? And we split that out between the plugins it has and APIs we have to build, or evidence that we have to create through custom APIs. right? And push to the platform. And also which ones can be covered just solely from like a policy manager. So it's like 3 buckets, right? But the first 3 months was definitely automating, tuning the evidence, meaning the gap alerts and making sure that, we're showing the right type of evidence, the right filters, right? The ones that matter for at least like 84%. 84% of the controls could be covered through plugins and policies, right? Like we have pretty high confidence, at least for SOC 2 and ISO 27. That's the first 3 months. And then the 6 months is to reach at least 95%. So cover the rest through custom APIs, which we'll use AWS Lambda and EventBridge for to pull evidence and push it. On top of that, it's also to like, I guess in regards to risk, formalize like governance processes across IT, prod dev, and data for accountability. Establish a recurring risk review cadence with leadership. I think leading up to that, we're going to like be ingesting more and more risks into our program. And then at one point, like really focus on like, okay, what's the best way to review this with leadership? What are the metrics they're going to care about? Starting to build that out, right? And then customer trust. I think, Chad, you're going to launch a knowledge-based system within 6 months?
We currently have one customer trust person right now. She's super stretched thin, especially as we start launching more and more products. She has to be able to figure out, how am I going to get more of this knowledge? One of the areas I want to do that is kind of outside customer trust. I want to build gates within the SSDLC process to where they're providing different documentation. We have a list of 15 to 20 questions that we're constantly getting from customers on new products. Okay, part of the documentation before this actually goes live, the customer trust team should have this, because a lot of times we're finding out about some of these new products as queries are coming in from customers. Hey, I have these 20 questions about that. Cool. Let me go figure out if we have that product. So I want to build those processes into it, as well as launch I have a knowledge-based tool that I've been working on. We're still normalizing some of the data, but I want to turn a lot of the current customer trust process into a self-service process that AEs and SEs can go ahead and pull a lot of this themselves. That way, customer trust isn't getting a questionnaire that has like 180 questions on it. A lot of this is answered up front. As soon as a customer asks these questions in a meeting, they can query the knowledge base, be able to provide that answer. So I want to make our process as self-service as possible. And then further refining the questionnaire, the automated questionnaire answering tool that I built. I want to clean that up a little bit. There's some issues that I want to get ironed out. So our trust analyst has implicit trust that the ones that are showing as green are actually green. She is very skeptical, I think, of it, but in a good way. I'm happy she's skeptical, because it's going to make me build her a better product, because she is the one that I need to please with this. I'm happy with the way it is, but I'm not the customer, so it doesn't matter. So when she's happy, that's when we'll fully release that as well. But that's kind of what I want to do in the next 6 months for customer trust.
And I think the best way to think about it is like the first 6 months, whatever it is, it's really taking GRC from 0 to 1, right? It's the most, I'd say, intense, because you're standing up all these programs and you're attempting to scale it. And then I think for the remaining, like within the first 12 months, it's really figuring out your 1 to 100. Where do we go next? What do we want to improve next, right? And I think that's ultimately dependent on the compliance certifications we want to go after. And also whatever comes out of the risk program.
And discovering the processes that we have that are extremely manual and tedious, and then go after actually automating those. We haven't really been here long enough to fully understand, like, okay, what is this thing that is tedious year in, year out, day in, day out? Those over the course of the first 6 months, we're going to start finding some of those processes, and then it's going to stick in our craw about enough that we're just going to fix it.
Yeah, I promised Steven we would automate the shit out of TPRM. So
nice.
Do that.
Yeah. This is what I like to hear. Anyone that wants to work on TPRM and make it better, this is what I'm trying to work on at GitLab as well.
I think that might be the first place where like we actually use AI to just perform the assessments, a quick initial assessment for us, because it's a low hanging fruit for sure in the realm
sample
of
testing
AI models.
here and there,
exactly.
to make sure we're actually
and we can definitely reuse like what what Chad is building for the customer knowledge base, because that essentially is
100%.
using AI models too. So it'll be a quick like copy paste over, just changing instructions really.
Yeah, when you process through structured or like slightly unstructured data, like, you know,
Yeah.
the logic is the same. It's just the prompts that change. But
And we're going to do it through JIRA.
And
oh no,
working at Docker, everything I'm doing is in a container. And
nice.
I'm trying to sanitize what I do to the point as well that I can release a lot of this out as open source to the community. That way they can
Yeah.
benefit from the pain I felt.
I think Chad and I definitely like we talked about our aspirations, what the perfect like internal GRC tool is, and it's like this like ultimate like GRC like internal website where it's like you have a section for continuous compliance, you have a section for risk management, you have a section for TPRM, you have a section for the customer trust, and it's like you click into them and it's our tools, right? It's like what we're using. And the
Done in a
automation, the bells and
containerized
whistles.
fashion. So if some other company wants to go ahead and pull this down from GitHub, they can just, you can pick it. It's a menu. You can pick and choose what
Yeah.
you want, and it's all going to work. You're going to be able to interchange. It's going to be great. So in
I love
12
it.
months, hopefully we can give you a little bit of a demo of some of that.
The GRC tool. You're actually just building the different feature sets and then you just combine everything together into like centralized platforms.
Pretty much.
Yeah, very cool. Hey, you might have a lot of local host tabs on your on your browsers and all the Docker containers you're running.
Already do.
Very cool. That was a very insightful conversation. I really think in 12 months, if we meet again, you'll be the trailblazer GRC engineering program, which Emre, it was your vision, really. It's like you kind of have that mandate to really kind of build something that would be leading in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like Docker put together a great team that can go ahead and do that. Like we're all like, we've all come from backgrounds where we're like, wow, I wish just we built this internally ourselves, or we had more resources to do this. Like we have 3 engineers to do it now. Like there's no excuse, right? And plus with like a very green field, as we mentioned in the beginning, it's like
perfect combination.
It's like, perfect combination.
Perfect setup.
Yeah.
And we're such great influences that our fun GRC analyst is actually, he's learning Python right now. He's trying to get on the GRC engineering train. He understands the future of GRC is going to be engineers.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wow.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I need to invite you in 12 months so we can recoup. Maybe by then all of you will be minted and like already completely retransformed the industry from the ground up.
Well, hopefully our tool's not so good that when we talk to in 12 months, we're vendors.
Yeah. Docker GRC, the new tool. Very cool. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Winter's coming. Do not eat yellow snow.
I think maybe if you're an aspiring GRC engineer, I think definitely the first step is to find a process that you're blocked by, unblock yourself, show value, show impact. And that's definitely the pathway.
Yeah. And if you're an aspiring GRC engineer, build projects, host them in AWS, show that you actually know how to do these things as part of your portfolio to stand out. Too many people, I mean, everybody's resume at this point almost looks the same. It's all going through ChatGPT. It's all going through Claude. It's the same shit. Create projects, show that you actually know how to do the things you're talking about. That way, when you get into the interview, you can walk them through what you've built and talk about it that way. Because little hint, as you're going through the interview process, if you're talking through something you've built, you kind of have a cheat sheet as to what the answer should be. So you're cutting out a lot of the questions you might not understand, but you're learning how to do the job.
Yep.
You have to know how to do the job. Because when Emre and I started, man, we had to hit the ground day one. Like you have to be able to come in and show value. It's a shrinking field because we have so much AI. So understand how to do the things you need to do.
Definitely contribute to the GRC engineering open source GitHub, right? You can drop that link in I don't know, wherever this
100%.
goes. Yeah. Get your hands dirty, sign up for an AWS account. It's super easy, it's super quick. It's actually I would say the fastest way to learn. If you don't have any projects that you can improve, like just create your own. Exactly. And I think the easiest one is probably like things like create like a continuous compliance like DynamoDB table that tells you whether or not your S3 buckets are encrypted or unencrypted. That's very, very fast, very easy.
Or use
It definitely
Claude
gives
to
you
build
insights.
labs for you.
Yes. Yeah, you can ask Claude, hey, like, what should I don't know, what's important to GRC engineering and what are some projects I can work on? It's definitely great at coming up with some
Go to
examples
Ugurlu's
there.
website, see what he's talking about. Download his newsletters, pop them in there, have Claude create you some labs based off of Ugurlu's newsletters.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
pay him for that, just saying. But yeah, I have one on
Not yet.
that with some user prompts and stuff. Like you can really and all great tips. And sometimes it's even like kind of understanding how you can parse through text and like have SOC 2 report. How can I like parse through that, like using a library to turn it into Markdown, and then like tying that to a Google Sheet and automatically kind of updating that data. Like especially if you go to an interview where your hiring manager is more traditional, if you can bridge the gap between like traditional GRC approach versus like more engineer, like, hey, even if you like spreadsheets and like regular stuff, I can tie my automation to how you consume content. And there's ways through which you can bridge the gap if, it's like still old school GRC.
So that's not to drag this out, but that's a very important topic you kind of just tangentially brought up there, is understanding how to communicate engineering to a non-engineer. That is so important. Being able to understand your audience and speaking at a level your audience understands.
Yeah. And what I will say as well is, in that sense, you two are kind of an anomaly in a sense. I would say that 99% of GRC engineer will report to a non-technical manager, most likely. So I think the GRC engineer will have to educate their management on the value they bring and how the automation kind of pushes forward the envelope of that manager that is potentially ex Big Four, ex auditor, more traditional background. So
yeah,
we'll have that.
I think, and probably the best way to convince them is just to do something without their knowledge, shock them, show them, be like, hey,
yes, that's the best way. I agree.
Let's get more support
and permission.
Yes, exactly. Worst case, they'll be like, whoa, that's really cool. Can you do it again?
Yeah. And then you have a new job.
Yeah.
100%. That was a very cool conversation. Lots of great insights, and I love the transparency as well, and like some of the challenges, some of the stuff you've been through. That's pretty rare. It's tough often to get insider knowledge on some of these programs. Sometimes kind of because of good reasons and sometimes bad reasons. We don't want to share how stuff is going and like the internals. It's still security, so there's that kind of issue that we have sometimes. But yeah, really appreciate both of you giving the time and sharing all those insights. And where can people find you if they want to reach out and bother you like we used to bother control owners?
Manscaped.com.
Where?
Manscaped.com.
I'll check.
I'm on LinkedIn, so go ahead, send me a follow, send me a request, reach out to me, send me a DM if you're not a vendor.
I don't check LinkedIn anymore because of how many DMs I have from vendors.
Listen, I love my vendors. I love vendors. No hate to vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
I'll let you know when to send me a message, though. I've done it before. So I'll let you know.
I will call you out so quick, and I will make you this small in my DMs if you message me multiple times trying to pitch something to me. I swear to God.
It's the hustle, man. They have to try at least 15 times.
It is
I
the hustle. I understand
what they have to do. They can just do it to Emre and not me.
Yeah. Don't call me on my cell. Send me an email or send me a LinkedIn message.
Especially US cell calling me in the UK. Please don't do this, please.
Oh.
It'll happen more than once. Amazing. Hey, really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure all the listeners would love it as well. Super practical and also kind of a lot of more high level, more kind of, strategic points as well. So yeah, thanks a lot for accepting to kind of meet with me and chat through all of this.
Thank you so much for having us. This was really fun. So much fun. Thank you so much. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.